This is an interview on the 30th of January 2005 with Sergeant Lawrence William Downs, known as Larry, V58286, VX103106, 39 Battalion, A Company, 9 Platoon. Larry, how did you first join the Army?
Well, got a call up. I think it was when they brought the National Service in. Well, when I got the call up, that was the best thing that ever happened in my life. It was a holiday. We went to Seymour. Well, that was bush. Oh, and a few things happened up there. They sent me down to the river with 4 other blokes and an officer for voice control. I gave the first command and he told me to go back to the camp and find something to do. The others, he couldn't hear, didn't know what they were talking about. And I'd been used to rounding cows up and that, you know, I always had a good voice.
Which was your first unit when you joined the Army?
The 8th Battalion.
Was that a local?
Ballarat Battalion.
Ballarat Battalion. Did you have a nickname when you joined the Army?
They used to call me Clunes with the 8th, because I had a fire brigade jumper with Clunes across it. It was Clunes this and Clunes that.
So when you were with the 8th Battalion in Ballarat, obviously word came through or a message came through saying that they were forming a new battalion. Is that how you came to join the 39th?
Yep.
Could you just tell us a bit about that?
They were on parade and they said that they were going to, the Army was forming a new battalion. Going to be the 39th Battalion. And they called for volunteers. So I was told once never to volunteer for anything, but I did.
Did they mention where the battalion was going at that stage?
We had no idea. So they sorted us out. There was 2 or 3 officers. Corbould was one. And all the big officers were all First War fellas. Some of them were good, some of them couldn't hack it. And when they sorted us out, we got on trucks and went down, I think, onto the train down to Melbourne, down to Caulfield. And that's where we were sorted out at Caulfield. And from Caulfield, we went down to Darley.
So you were there right at the beginning of the
Right, yeah, from the first day till the last day.
And what did you think of the Darley Camp? What was there?
Oh, a lot of steamed up AIF blokes. I think they were only volunteers in any case. You know, blokes that they hadn't been away or anything, and they tried to make it nasty for us. I didn't drink or anything. It didn't worry me whether I went to the canteen or not. But there was 1 or 2 good brawls there. I don't think we got beat.
Did you? Was there a good feeling amongst the battalion even at that early stage?
Yeah. Well, see, from the 8th Battalion, a lot of the fellas that come from the 8th came to my platoon. So, you know, you were with friends all the time. And right from the first, that blue with the AIF probably was the best thing that ever happened to the 39th Battalion. It moulded us together.
And you were a sergeant in A Company at that time?
No, I was only corporal.
Only a corporal at that stage. And what sort of training did you do at Darley? Was it...
a hell of a lot of route marching. down in them gorges and that. Gosh, sometimes it was hot, you know, but that didn't worry me. And as for water, that didn't worry me. I could go without water, and I still do. I have 1 glass of water a week, and that's to take a Fosmac tablet.
So after Darley, word must have come through that you were heading off to New Guinea.
Yeah, but we marched in Melbourne.
That's right. There was a special march in Melbourne.
Yeah.
What was that like?
All right. Yeah. We got a good reception.
So when word came through that you were heading up to Sydney by train to get onto the Aquitania, what was the feeling amongst the battalion then? Excitement?
Yes, I'd say they would. See, we weren't allowed to come home for Christmas. And the next morning, we landed on the train in Melbourne. And from there, we went straight up, and the train went right down to Circular Quay. And someone said, "That's the boat we're going on." God, I looked bloody up at it. It looked like a 6-story house. And that was the biggest boat that I'd ever seen. The biggest I'd ever seen was up at Dalesford Lake. A wrong boat.
So how was the trip on the Aquitania?
Very good. Very good.
Did you do a bit of training, a bit of shooting while you're on board? And
No training. They taught me to play tour. And I broke the bank. 84 quid. It was like winning Tats Lotto.
That would have been a lot of money in those days.
Oh, yes. I couldn't get the centre set. I spun 11 heads in a row, and when I got up there was nothing to spend it on, so I put it in 2 envelopes and sent it home to my mother.
And there was a fair convoy heading up on the Aquitania with the Aquitania?
No, we had two, what would they call them? One was cutting back and forwards across the front of us all the time. There's some of the boys, I don't know whether it was from the machine gun battalion or not, that took over the gun on the boat, because if they'd have fired it, it had been only rust, I think, it had come out of it.
So once you once you arrived in New Guinea and the Aquitania pulled into Port Moresby, what was the feeling
We
like?
couldn't get into the wharf. We had to climb down ropes and that onto tenders, and they took us into Moresby, into the wharf.
And what did you do when you got there?
Well, they formed us up and set forth out to the 7 Mile Drome. It was getting in the evening then, and all the young blokes there going, and all the Papuans were lined up along the road. So, no tops on them, the women, and the blokes were all looking. And we marched out to the 7 Mile Drome, and we went one way. Someone took us down to the side of the drome. He said, "This is where you're camping." And that's where we pulled up for the night. I don't know where the rest went. This is much the same as the 39th Battalion. We were never always in the one spot altogether.
So you obviously didn't have, the ship hadn't been unloaded then, so
No.
you didn't have many tents, mosquito
We had
nets.
5 rounds of ammo. And, of course, all the stuff that we wanted, food and all the medical supplies and ammunition, was first on the boat. And therefore it was the last off. And I think we were a week without any mosquito nets or, essential things.
What was your main job once you got settled in at the 7 Mile? What were some of your main duties there?
First we were digging trenches for our own safety. And where we were, Vic Smythe, he was a knockabout fella. We had him on, he was digging latrine. How deep? They said you've got to dig it all. They said at least 6 feet. Well, it was down 20 odd feet. He found a bit of quartz with a speck of gold in it, and he kept going. Had to get him out of it. But it was the deepest lavatory at the 7 Mile Drome.
Were you still a corporal at this stage, or you a sergeant?
No, still corporal.
Still a corporal. What do you remember about when the bombing raid started?
Well, the first bombing raid, it came over, and I don't know what we were doing. We were spread out a bit. We had a fellow with us called Jimmy Trezise, and he could play anything on a mouth organ. And he was a real general on blowing the last post. So he was laying on his bunk and he said, safe as a church in here. He said, the tent will stop anything. Well, they came over and we thought they were bombing us, but they weren't bombing us. They were bombing the Akak up above us. And of course some of them dropped short and they wiped our tents out. And that's when I knew the damage that them daisy cutters could do. They cut a tree down 6 inches like that, just as though it was a bit of butter. And Trezise's tent's gone, and we said he's gone too when we got out of the, when the all clear went. And Jimmy's under the bed, his bunk he'd made was upside down on top of him, and he didn't know whether he'd been hit or what had happened. But he came from Ballarat.
Can you remember any Japanese Zeros doing strafing raids?
Yeah, they shot one down.
Did you see that? Or?
One of these raids. And it went down over the back of the hill. And they said, what we could find out, we weren't allowed near it or anything, but he was cut in half where he hit the ground, the pilot. But when we moved from there, it was too dangerous because they were going for the Akak and getting us.
Where did you move to?
Where?
Where did you move to after that?
Down nearly opposite from where we were, but back in the hill. It was just off the road that goes to up to Rona Falls. And we had dug in there, we had good weapon pit and everything, and we were putting up bays for the planes to go in with 44-gallon drums. 2 on the bottom and 1 we'd sit on the top and fill them with dirt. And we got the raids, and this day we got the siren goes and we take across. We manned our guns when in the Zeros came, we reckon. And we opened up. And it wasn't the Zeros, it was the Kitty Hawks.
From 75 Squadron?
Yeah, and on the side, only one thing it meant to me was there was a big J on the side of one of them. I said, bloody Japs. And they opened up and they riddled half them. It wasn't only us. I don't know how many machine guns opened up right around the drome, all the battalion, and how any of them never got killed. And they reckon when they pulled up down on the drome, when they did land them, whack at somebody come out with his pistol in his hand, he'd shoot the first bugger he's seen that's got a gun in his hand.
Once the Kitty Hawks did arrive, did things improve then with the bombing raids?
Well, we did have some protection. They went up straight away and they shot a bomber down. There was only 3 planes, I think, but the Air Force was to blame they give the message that there was enemy aircraft approaching from the sea. And Ken Avery was the 2IC of our company, and he was a good soldier, First War soldier, and he and there was this terrible smell come over. Christ, we said gas, and he said, "Well, it's too late now, then, boys." He said, "All your equipment's back in the tent. You know, the masks and that." But it wasn't. It was where the bomb dropped, and there was the acid smoke that was drifting over us. Just smelt like something you never smelt before.
So you were you were with A Company at that stage?
Yep. A Company all the time.
All the time. And how was morale, even after all that? Was
all right. Oh, we had one bloke went bomb happy, but he only went bomb happy because the Yanks were down in Melbourne somewhere, down in Brisbane somewhere, and his wife was a pretty good looking sort. And that's all that drove him bomb happy, and they sent him home.
Why at the 7 Mile? Did you get letters and parcels from home on a regular basis?
Oh, well, we got mail. Yeah, I'd say while we were there, it was pretty regular.
And after that, word would have come through about the Japanese landing on the north coast.
No, we jumped ahead a bit. We were sent out to Bootless Bay, putting wire down. And there was an old fella that had been there in New Guinea all his life. He said to us one day, he said, "How you going, boys?" We said, "All right." He said, "You finished yet?" And we said, "No." Well, he said, "You better hurry up." "Why?" "Well," he said, "the wet's coming," and he said, "if you don't get it down within the next few days, you won't." 3 days' time, we got 7 inches of rain, and the kunai grass, if you put your ear down, you could hear it growing. In a week, you couldn't find the wire down Bootless Bay. It was covered. That's how quick it grew. But Moresby was like much the same as here, but dry. Oh, dry, very dry.
Did you take part, while you're at Bootless Bay, did you take part in a mock battle down there? Was there a training exercise that you can remember?
No. We used to go out on, do a bit of a duva, like on the other side of the bay, go up into the, I don't know what the mountain was.
So prior to you all going on the track, was there a lot of training done there, or was it just basically guarding the drome? And
no, the biggest training we did was unloading boats. As I told you before, I could always run. Always, there wasn't many that make me lower my colours. So we're on this boat this day unloading it, and they told us when the siren goes, don't hesitate, because they're coming for the boat. So we're working. We had an officer there that he wasn't our officer. His name was Stokes. I think the chief knew him.
was this the MacDooey we're talking about?
Who?
Was this the boat, the MacDooey?
Yeah. And Stokesy was down the hole. No, he wasn't. He'd been down the hole, and he'd just come up when the siren went. And he's on the opposite side of the boat to the wharf. And when it went off, the siren, Stokesy took off straight down the bloody hole. I think he broke his leg or something.
So you got off the boat pretty quick?
My word. There was nowhere to hide on the boat.
So what happened after that? Did the boat then go off?
It boat pulled straight out, see?
And there would have been some 39 soldiers
I
for it,
think,
mate?
yeah, there was some 39. I think we got one killed on it. Yeah, on the 39.
And can you remember the boat getting bombed?
Bombed, yes. And that's where he drove it in, and that's where it was over on the side of the bay.
He beached it, did he? Or
It beached it. Yeah. But they'd had 2 or 3 goes at it. You knew what they were after. They were after the boats, if there was any boat there.
so once the Japanese did land and the word came through that you were going to head up, or B Company was going to head up, what was the feeling amongst the battalion then that you were probably going to see some action?
Well, you know what they had us doing? They thought we might have to fly up and we mightn't be able to land, and we might have to jump out. They had us jumping off a tower. About 16 feet or something. I think there was a few ankles twisted.
So once B Company left, and did you see them go off up on the track?
I just forget, I don't know whether B Company flew up. I think they flew up.
No, I think B Company walked up first and then probably the others came after. How did you actually get up to Kokoda? Did you walk there or
we walked there, every inch, both ways.
And what did you think of it on the walk up?
Well, I was tail end Charlie, bringing up the stragglers. I'd get into camp, the stage, when it was getting nearly dark. And I don't know, it was badly organised. They should have worked for the slowest to be at the front. Because what was the good of getting up to say there was a fight on with only half your unit? Some of the blokes I didn't even know, they were probably from 7 or 8 platoon. But I was carrying 2 rifles in the finish and that to get them up there.
So where did you finally arrive? At Kokoda village itself? After about 7 or 8 days?
No. There was a sort of a, they called it at Isharava, like a village at Isharava. There's a couple of huts and that there. And I think we hilled there for a day, and then we went down to Deniki. And Deniki, I think we were at Deniki for a couple of days. But that's when I was made sergeant. Guest was moved to 9 platoon, to 8 platoon. And really, Johnny Eckhurst was the sergeant by rights, but he got crook.
After Deniki, did you then
From Deniki, we went to Kokoda.
Okay, and what happened at Kokoda? Things were obviously starting to look a bit grim there for the battalion.
Yeah, B Company had been there, and they got pushed out. But when we went in, there was only one bloke, and one coming down the road on a push bike. But they shot his wheel out, and they don't know where he went. But this bloke that was in Kokoda took off. Where, I don't know. I never seen him. And
yeah, so A Company was now in Kokoda itself.
In Kokoda. Okay. And 7 platoon and 8 platoon were put into position into B Company's, the work that B Company had done there. 9 platoon was stuck back in the rear. We were the rear platoon going up, and we were the rear platoon up there. And where did we get, who got hit was us. That's why we had so many casualties, because we never had holes in that. See, the others were dug in at forward of where we were. We were told we were a reserve platoon. We were a reserve platoon. We were very short of ammunition in the finish. We were using tracers.
And you were on the Kokoda Plateau with people like Alec Lockhead and J.D. Mackay.
Yeah.
And you were obviously directing them where they should go.
Yeah, no, Alec took my place in the section, like of 9 section, and JD came up after we'd been hit. We were hit when they came through on us, and JD come running up and he said, "Where do you want me to go, Larry?" I said, "There," and that was in that big gutter that went across. And there was Don Howlett and Jimmy Mariner was over that side, Vern Scattergood. They were in this trench.
With JD?
Yeah. And the first 3 shots were fired from the Japs when we went in. The first shot, Bluey Williams come up. He shouldn't have been up there. He should have been back with his own platoon. Dropped him. And he was 6 feet away from me. And then there was another shot, and I said that they're behind us. And I turned my head to look behind, but they weren't behind us at all. I think that's the one that had my name, but missed. But went right past me ear hole, and it just sounded like it exploded. Frank McLeod, 6 feet on the other side of me, and bang. I looked and Frank's down. Now, those 2 fellas never moved. They never, if you kill a sheep or anything, nerves make you move. They never moved. And all you could see just there was a little trickle of blood run down the side of their face. Well, when I tried to move, they opened up. So, it's marvellous how small you can make yourself behind a little tree. I was there, it was nearly 4 hours, till Alec Lockhead and them out on my left got the bloke that was doing the damage, and he was in a tree. And he wouldn't fall down because he had a belt on. But in the finish, they chopped the tree down, the rubber tree. And just for a little funny bit, I felt something on my head. God, I said, what the hell's that? And I sneaked my hand up like this, and I put my hand behind my head, and I pulled my hand away, and it's white. Christ, I said, my brains are running out. And it was the latex, from the rubber trees where the bullets are bloody hitting.
Can you remember, I think Colonel Owen was killed up there. Do you remember anything about Colonel Owen?
No, that was with B Company.
With B Company, okay.
Yeah. Seen him in the tree, laying in a bit of a dent in the ground, but he wasn't covered up. You could.
Was this up on the plateau?
Yeah. But see, nobody talked much about that. What happened at that time, because B Company had gone somewhere else, and I had a mate in B Company, come from Clunes, Jack Jones. He was from, he lived up on the hill up there, went to school together. And I never met him up there. Never met him come home. And now that, you're in the same battalion and never met him. That's how we were never a battalion together. We were always battalions, companies were holding battalion positions. And so we were kicking into the wind right from the start.
How did you get out of Kokoda?
I jumped off the plateau.
Off the edge of the plateau?
I was Tony Ruvolt and myself were the last two off the Kokoda plateau.
Was it night time or?
Night as black, and there was like fireflies flying past you. And if it hadn't been for Jim Cowie, I wouldn't be talking to you now. Jim Cowie came back. Symington ordered to go out. And Sorensen, by rights, should have been the man that come and told us. And he didn't. He went out with Symington. And old Jim Cowie said, they got to be told. And he come and he said to me, he said, get what you can get. He said, well, the rest are gone. We didn't know whether they'd been wiped out or what had happened.
J.D. Mackay tells a similar story where Jim Cowie got some of the troops out. So you were part of that group.
That's right. Yeah. And all that could walk out, there was 9. And how Tony Ruvolt and I was left, Jackie Stormont got shot in the back. And he was in a dugout. They had him in a dugout. And we went down into the dugout. I said to Tony, you watch here, I'll go down and have a look, see whether they've taken him. And he was dead. And all I could smell was rum. I found that out later, that they had rum, the company headquarters.
So you then proceeded back to Deniki with Jim Cowie?
Yes, yeah, we, not right away, but later that day, next day. When Tony and I decided to we come out of this hole and we run across, and I didn't know it was 16 foot high up side. You went down along the steps to go across, this little bridge over this creek. It was running pretty fast. We went over the bloody side and holy hell, it didn't hurt till you stopped. And Tony come down and I said, what the hell's going on? And Tony said, he said, I think I've bent the Bren gun. Well, I found out after it didn't make any damn difference whether he'd bent it or not, because he'd never fired a shot out of it. Tony had never fired a shot while he was there. He was what do they call it, a pacifist? He'd do any other thing, but he wouldn't.
So you eventually got back to Deniki?
No, we went down this mountain, went up this mountain, and it was a big banana plantation, wild bananas growing. So we camped the night. There was Tony and I, and we met, I don't know who the other bloke was. I think his name was Smith. We waited, and we heard this crashing coming through the banana plant. It was Neil, Harry Barkler, and two of 7 platoon. So it's just starting to break light, and we took off up the mountain. And that's when they come across this track, and in the mud there was this is like monkeys' feet. We said, there's bloody monkeys here. You know, the big toe was separate from the... Soon found out, we just got up a little bit further when I looked around this big tree, and here's this great big chap there.
Is this when you saw your first Japanese?
Yeah. They must have gone up there, I think, when they knocked C Company out. Or it's how they got up there, or whether they were up there or not. They were in a little village. There was a little village. And we go up the mountain, and we're sneaking along the side on a little track up above a big native garden. And standing up in the garden is a big corn cob. Big maize standing up and a big cob sticking out the side. You'd love to have gone down and got it. We get past it a bit, and I look back like that, and there's Jimmy Marrow down there picking it. Above the village. And here we're going around it, and he's thinking of his gut.
You would have been short on ammunition at that stage too, wouldn't you?
We had next to nothing. I had a mag and a half of a Tommy gun left. The big drum mag, I'd got rid of it as soon as it ran out. But that with the Tommy gun was a good weapon. See, there was an ounce of lead hit you, and when it hit you, don't matter where you hit them, you knocked them over.
And you eventually got back
to, we met Padre Earl with a little sandbag with little tins of salmon in it. And it was bloody lovely. I think JD cut his tongue licking out the tin.
Was this around Deniki?
Yeah, we never got to Deniki again. It was between Deniki and Nisharava.
So the Padre was down that far?
Yeah. Oh, he'd grab somebody and say, there's a bloke hit up the track, you better come, we've got to go and see that he's looked after.
And the troops liked him?
Yes. Never heard a bad word about him.
He obviously put himself right in the front line.
Yeah, it didn't matter whether you were an atheist, you still had to like him. He went out. He was very lucky. He went, there was a bloke shot just before the waterfall. I don't know whether you've heard of the waterfall, but of all the stupid places they put this standing patrol was at a waterfall, and you couldn't hear nothing. It was just shh all the time. And he went out, there was a bloke been shot up the track, and he's laying there on the track, and Padre Earl said to whoever the lad was he had with him, he said, there's something funny here. He said, he's not even been moved. And they found out later that he had a grenade under his chest. If you'd have rolled him over, boom. And that was the first we'd found, knew of things like that they were doing.
With all the wounded, you would have known Doc Vernon?
Who?
Doc Vernon?
Dead.
Doctor?
Yeah, he all he had was a safari jacket. He had a pocket knife in the pocket and his stethoscope in the other pocket. Yeah, I'll go back to Kokoda. This fella, he was as tall as you, and his name was Schroeder. We're pinned down behind this bloody tree, and this bloke comes up behind me, and bullets are flying, chopping bits out of the tree, and he said to me, he says, Sarge, he said, I've been hit. and he was holding his hands on his stomach like this, and there was blood everywhere. I said, if you don't bloody well get down, you'll have one in your head. So I said, get back to company headquarters. I said, they'll fix you up. So he disappeared. Well, I never seen him again. And he wasn't shot in the gut. He was shot in the hand. 2 fingers were hanging. And he got back to Australia, I know that, but I don't know where he was. He's not in the 39th, but he's dead now.
So after all this, you finally got back to Isharava, and the battalion was there.
It was just on dark when we got into Isharava.
And what was the situation like there?
Well, it was just there was nothing doing, really.
Is this when Ralph Honour joined the battalion?
Hey?
Is this when Ralph Honour joined the battalion?
No, a little bit later we were back and had taken up a positions when Honour arrived.
Can you remember when Ralph Honour arrived?
Yeah. This bloke come down the track and, sprightly sort of a bloke. And I bailed him up. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm holding you up. And he said, I said, where are you heading? And he said, I want company headquarters. Yeah, and who are you? He said, I'm your new commander. I said, pleased to meet you. I never shook hands or nothing with him. Don't know, he might have been a judo man or something. But I must have passed all right with him. I called Harry Barkler. I said, Harry, take him up to battalion headquarters, will you? And we took him.
Did he ask your name, Larry?
Hey?
Did he ask who you were?
No. But he must have soon found out. Then, it was later in the day, this great big bloke come down the track. The 14th weren't there then.
The second 14th hadn't arrived then?
No. And this big fella, he came down the track and he had no shirt on and a woolen jumper tied around his waist, and he was pretty white. I knew he hadn't been there long. And he said, I halted him. And he took one step and I said, stop. And he said, don't you know me? Never seen you in my life before. So I said, what are you doing here? Where are you going? And he said, I'm the officer in charge of the operation. And I said, who's that? He said, my name's Porter, Brigadier. So he said, you got a Tommy gun? Yeah. He said, what's it like? I said, not bad. I said, the trouble is, they're pretty heavy with ammunition and that. Give us a look. I stepped back one step and I said, no fear. I don't hand my bloody weapon over to anybody. Not even if I knew you. Because that's to hand that over, the chief should know that if you handed that over, that's criminal.
That's a chargeable offence, maybe.
Yeah, or you could be dead.
So was Brigadier Porter heading down to company headquarters?
So I called Harry Barkler and Harry escorted him down.
So tell us a bit about Isharava, because that was before the second 14th came.
We come in just on dark and the SIGs were there and they had a pot of potato and must have had a tin of bully beef mashed up in it. But I know it tasted good. So as soon as it broke daylight, we moved into positions there.
Into company positions?
Yeah. We had a quick look as we come in, like at the village. There was the hut and that, and there was a bit of a clearing, and we were there, and we took patrolling, Don Simonson, he got whacked. That's when we knew that they were on their way to us. He got hit. I think he got hit in the hip somewhere, but he soldiered on, and
Were you positioned up on the hill or down on the flat part?
Just as the start of the rise like this, see, going up to there was a hut up where the SIGs were, and it opened down, and then there was a little ridge went down just off where the track went there. Well, I've got a little story about that too, but I won't get ahead. We had an open spot, or they'd cut a field of fire. I don't know whether it wasn't B Company that cut it. Anyhow, Nobby Oil had a bit of a church parade. Called them all down. We were down there. And 2 lads from Ballarat got killed there. There was the second shot from the mountain gun. We just broke up. We were heading for our dugouts or holes, whatever it was, and the 2, Riley and O'Donnell, got killed. So we're there, and 9 platoon had to go out, 7 of us. We had to go out to see where we could make contact. We never went far. We weren't to fire. We were to make the contact and pull out. And we come back, and that was the last patrol that I took forward there. Don Simonson and them had to go. They went to the left to go where it goes up to bloody near straight up the mountain. And they got back, but he was wounded, and I don't know whether they took him out or at the time or not, because you did, as I say, you didn't know much about what was happening with the other companies or platoons or that. You're looking after your own.
Did the Japanese come down that very steep rise, or?
No, but I still reckon that they had a post up there somewhere, because with that mountain gun, they were lobbing them from up pretty high. Anyhow, then, all that day we had 2 or 3 good firefights, and we were getting wounded all the time. That was the trouble, and there was nothing to fill up the holes when the 14th came in. And I had to put this 14th company in position. Well, where this little creek ran along here, there was a little rise. The track, Isharaba track was over here, and this little rise. And I took them in, had to take them in here and put them in position here. And this loot said to me, "Stand up and walk like a soldier." And I passed a very uncomplimentary remark to him and kept going. Half hour later, there was a firefight on, and as it went past where Barkler and I was, it's this loot with no top on his head. Well, no, see, we knew what we were doing. If you put your head up over this rise, you got a shot.
So once the 2nd 14th arrived, did you then pull back a bit?
No. I don't know exactly, but I think some of the platoons sort of amalgamated. It had to, because otherwise as I say, never had contact with them. We knew that the 16th was out on our right, and we heard firing going on down there, and we thought, oh, there, everything's all right. But everything wasn't all right. That was when the 53rd had gone. See, they really... Anyhow, as it's turned out, history has turned out that what the 53rd did was the best bloody thing that ever happened. Because we couldn't have beat them. There was too many of them. See, what they had 6,000 troops there on, landed at Buna.
Larry, after Isharava and you were pushed back, what was your last action with the 39th Battalion on the track?
Well, the last angry action was when we waited to... We're the only battalion that has fought a rearguard action to the AIF. Militia Battalion to the AIF, as when we covered their withdrawal coming back from Isharava, coming to Ora Creek. That was our last action there, serious action. We waited till this bloke coming down the track, he was hanging back a bit, and I said to him, how many more to come? And he said, I'm the last. Well, I thought he'd been moving a bit faster than he was. So anyhow, we let him go through, and we waited for about a minute. But there was nothing on his ginger because it's going to be on ours. So we had to go down, we had to cross this log. Well, that was no worry to me. What I mean, going over anything, I blinded the bridge up here when there was 10 feet of floodwater going under it. The log was about that big, and soon as that last bloke cleared, we seen him. God, we said he's moving slow to get across this log to go up to Ora Creek. We said, right, go, and we off. We're coming down to that log, and they were firing from behind us. And I reckon that log was the length of this room, and I reckon I only put 2 feet on it because there was chips flying out of it. And some of them sat down on it and to wriggle themselves across it. God, you'd be dead meat. Some jumped over and went into the creek. Oh, it was fast because it was coming down out of the mountains, and we went up into Ora Creek and we took up a position there and held that till all the wounded and that had got through. So when we come out of Isharava, Merritt, Captain Merritt, he was there and he called for the base plate for the mortar. He said, just the base plate. And they come up with the base plate and he said, we better have the barrel too. So wherever the hell they had it, and they brought that up, and then they had no bloody bombs to put in it. Yeah. So we had to wait till the wounded cleared so far. We lost a couple. Frank Smalley got killed coming out from there, and Jack Keas went out. He was the cook, but his legs were moving. So we were to go out when he gives the count, and he counted down to out. And we had a bloke on a stretcher. I don't know whether he was 39th or whether I met him in Melbourne at a march one day. He was in a wheelchair. He was on that stretcher and he kept saying, don't leave me, don't leave me. And We said, we won't leave you. You'll be right. We won't leave you. So when Merritt started his countdown, this bloke was getting twitchy, and when time he got to 8, he jumped off the stretcher and off. His foot was boneless. It was blown. There was only flesh there. And he was an hour or probably more before we caught up to him, bleeding like a stuck pig up the track. Yeah.
So after you finally finished all the actions and you were back in Australia, the 39th was disbanded at Wandekla, and you were there.
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about that.
The battalion was formed up. When you think of it, it wasn't very big. You know, to think that all the men that marched into Darley was there in a handful. Were formed up, and I was acting CSM, and I took the parade and marched down to the Wandekla, and they told us that we were no longer a battalion, that we were going dispersed to the second battalion.
And how did you feel about that?
Didn't feel very good at all. But I couldn't show it because I was in charge of the bloody parade, and I knew the blokes that we had there, if they got it wouldn't matter who told them or not, but they might have run amok. So I got them back, and A Company was to the second, and B Company was to somewhere else, and one of the other companies, but I was always in the A Company.
We're just about finished now. What do you think is important for future generations to remember about the New Guinea campaigns?
Intelligence. To know what you're going into. We never had a map. We didn't know nothing. Well, it's common knowledge now. They thought the gap could be held with a handful of men. Instead of that, it was 5 mile wide. And there was gorges in there just when anything was clear. God knows how deep they were. Some of on the track alone, over the side, was 1,000-foot drop. And it was only a native pad. And then to think that the Yanks called it a trail.
Well, Larry, on behalf of the 39th Battalion History Subcommittee, I'd like to thank you very much for this interview. Thank you.
Pleasure.